There is a peculiar moment in every human life when the burden of control becomes too heavy to carry, when the script we've been reciting no longer fits the shape of our spirit. This is not a failure. This is a signal. It is the soul knocking gently from within the fortress of the ego, asking to be let out. The ego, despite what we have been told, is not a villain. It is a necessary structure, a scaffolding that gives form to our identity, a mechanism through which we navigate the outer world. But over time, this scaffolding begins to feel permanent. We mistake it for the self, and in that confusion, we begin to cling to roles, titles, relationships, judgments, desires, and fears, not because they bring us peace, but because they help us preserve the illusion of certainty. To let go, then, is to risk everything the ego has constructed, and that is precisely why we resist. It is not because we do not want freedom. It is because we fear what freedom might demanding the loss of who we thought we were. Imagine the soul as a wild bird locked in a cage the ego built for its own safety. The bars are made of old stories. What others said we should be, what we came to believe we must do, what we feared would happen if we strayed too far from the known path. Over the years, the cage becomes ornate, even beautiful. We decorate it with achievements. We hang memories like ornaments. We call it home. And yet, we wonder why we feel empty, why the light in our chest has dimmed, why joy feels like something we must schedule or earn. The truth is simply the soul cannot breathe in confinement. It cannot sing someone else's song. It cannot expand while the ego contracts, and so life begins to whisper. First, gently, a missed opportunity here, a quiet dissatisfaction there. Then louder, relationships fracture, plans collapse, illness arrives, depression descends. These are not punishments. These are summons. Letting go is not a single act. It is a process of awakening. It begins the moment we realize that the pain of holding on is greater than the fear of release. That moment is sacred. In it, the ego trembles, sensing its loss of dominion, while the soul stirs, sensing its return to light. We often believe that if we let go of a job, a partner, an identity, a dream, we will fall into nothingness. But the opposite is true. We fall into being, into reality, into presence. When the grip loosens, awareness floods in. And with awareness comes the truth. We were never the mask, the role, the performance. We were always the one beneath, waiting to be remembered. Yet letting go is not passive. It is not avoidance or apathy. It is the most active engagement with life there is. Because to truly let go, you must be awake. You must see the mechanism of your attachments, feel the weight of your conditioning, trace the roots of your fear. And then you must choose, not once, but every day, to loosen your hold, to say, I trust the unknown more than I trust this illusion. In that space of trust, a miracle happens. Not loud, not sudden, but profound. The world doesn't shift because you forced it. It shifts because you stopped resisting it. Energy that was bound up in control is released. Tension becomes flow. Conflict becomes clarity. The soul, no longer muffled by the noise of the ego, begins to speak again. In dreams, in intuition, in synchronicities that defy logic but feel unmistakably real. And you begin to see life differently. Where before there was fear, now there is openness. Where before there was striving, now there is surrender. You no longer need to grip so tightly because you realize the river does not need your permission to flow. It only asks that you stop damming it with your fear. The deeper you go, the more you discover that letting go is not just about external things. It is about internal patterns, letting go of judgment, comparison, shame, guilt, resentment, the need to be right, the compulsion to be seen. These are the hidden chains. They bind us more than any job or relationship ever could, but they can be released, not by force, but by presence, not by striving, but by witnessing. You sit with your pain. You acknowledge the fear behind your clinging. You breathe into the space where the illusion once sat. And in that breath, the soul returns, not as a concept, but as a living presence. In the architecture of the unseen, there is a delicate pattern, an intelligence woven into the fabric of events that defies logic and yet speaks directly to the soul. This is the realm of synchronicity, moments when inner transformation is mirrored by external alignment, when seemingly unrelated events converge with precise meaning, as if the universe were whispering directly to you. But this mysterious guidance does not emerge through control or manipulation. It reveals itself the moment we let go. We spend so much of our lives in pursuit of goals, of people, of answers. Driven by the ego's hunger to define, predict, and possess, we construct blueprints for our lives and then become disoriented when the world refuses to obey them. It is in this state of disorientation, when our plans crumble and our efforts yield resistance instead of reward, that we begin to encounter the deeper truth. We are not here to force life into our design. We are here to listen to its design for us. Letting go is the first act of that listening. It is the space between action and reaction, between desire and demand. To let go is not to abandon the dream, but to release the compulsive need to control its timing, form, and outcome. And in that release, something ancient begins to stir, something that the intellect cannot summon, but the soul instantly recognizes. That something is synchronicity. When you stop grasping, you shift your vibration. Your energy becomes less chaotic, more attuned. The frequency of surrender aligns you with the frequency of the cosmos. You stop swimming upstream, and suddenly the current turns to meet you. The people you need appear. The words you needed to hear find you. The job, the invitation, the breakthrough, all arrive not by effort but by resonance. This is not luck, nor mere coincidence. It is a living pattern responding to the depth of your inner state. When you release resistance, you no longer repel the very blessings that have been trying to find you. You become porous, receptive. Life begins to feel less like a battlefield and more like a dialogue. You ask, and without demanding, you receive. But the key lies in the purity of the letting go. If you release only to receive, if your surrender is transactional rather than devotional, the pattern remains hidden. Synchronicity requires honesty. It demands presence. It waits for the moment you are willing to be with what is, rather than obsessed with what could be. Only then does it reveal itself, not as a trick of fate, but as the silent choreography of the divine. We've all had glimpses of it. You think of someone you haven't spoken to in years, and they call. You contemplate a change in direction, and a stranger tells you a story that answers your unspoken question. You feel lost, and a passage in a book stirs something so profound in you, it seems written just for that moment. These are not anomalies. These are messages, not sent from outside, but activated from within. The more you trust this mysterious rhythm, the more visible it becomes. Letting go becomes less of a struggle and more of a practice. You begin to notice the subtle signs, the tingling in your chest when something is right, the heaviness when something is off. You begin to notice the effortless ease that accompanies alignment and the grinding resistance that follows control. The map of your life is no longer static. It is alive, interactive, shaped by your willingness to participate, not dominate. This is the hidden power of surrender. It does not diminish your agency. It refines it. You begin to make decisions not from fear or urgency, but from a quiet knowing. You stop acting out of desperation and instead begin to move from inspiration. This shift is subtle but radical. It is the difference between chasing the future and being invited into it. There is a always, just after true surrender, when everything goes still. In that stillness, the old narrative dissolves. The noise of the ego fades. And then, gently, the signs begin to emerge. The right path illuminates itself not in neon lights, but in the soft glow of synchronicity. You realize you are not alone. You never were. The universe was only waiting for you to stop talking long enough to listen. The strange thing is, the less you need to control the outcome, the more outcomes begin to support you. Life begins to feel like it knows something you don't, and you welcome that mystery. You become a partner in the unfolding, not a prisoner of your plans. You live not just with awareness, but in rhythm. Your choices no longer feel frantic. They feel fated, not imposed by destiny, but co-created by your deepest authenticity. The gateway to that world is narrow. It will not allow your baggage through. You cannot carry your justifications, your doubts, your rigid timelines. You must walk through with open hands, open eyes, and a heart willing to be surprised. Within each of us, there exists a realm, hidden in the corners of our psyche, that we often prefer to ignore. This is the realm of the shadow, the unconscious aspects of ourselves that we cannot see or unwilling to confront. It is where our fears, our insecurities, our unhealed wounds, and our darker impulses reside. The shadow is not inherently evil. It is merely everything we have disowned or repressed because it feels too painful, too shameful, or too difficult to accept. But this part of ourselves does not remain dormant. It is not something we can simply lock away and forget about. The shadow constantly seeks expression, and in its unchecked state, it influences our behavior, our relationships, and the choices we make. The truth is that the more we cling to external things, the more we become attached to our identity, to our success, to our comfort zones, to what we think we need in order to feel whole. the stronger the shadow becomes. Our attempts to control and hold on, to keep things within a defined order, only serve to reinforce the parts of ourselves we wish to keep hidden. The ego thrives on attachment because it fears dissolution. It creates patterns of behavior and defense mechanisms protect us from facing the very parts of ourselves that we are most afraid to encounter. And so, we push them away, making them more powerful. But when we choose to let go, when we decide to release our grip on the things, the people, and the identities we have clung to so fiercely, something profound happens. The very act of surrendering creates the space necessary for the shadow to emerge. And when the shadow emerges, we are confronted with ourselves. No longer as the image we have projected, but as we truly are. It is not an easy journey. To truly release means to confront the parts of ourselves we have avoided. It is a confrontation with the parts of us that feel unworthy, unlovable, and flawed. These are the aspects of ourselves that we have long rejected, thinking that to acknowledge them would be to invite chaos or ruin. But what we do not realize is that by refusing to face our shadow, we give it power over us. It works behind the scenes, subtly influencing our decisions, our reactions, and our relationships, leading us to sabotage ourselves or manifest patterns of pain. The act of letting go forces us to face the shadow head-on. It is a radical shift in perspective. We stop fearing our darkness and start embracing it. We stop running from the things that scare us and begin to move toward them with curiosity, with compassion, and with courage. It is in this process that the grip of the shadow loosens. When we stop denying or repressing our darker aspects, they no longer have to act out in destructive ways. Instead, they can be integrated. The parts of ourselves that were once hidden in the darkness can come into the light and be understood, healed, and transformed. Letting go creates the necessary space for this integration. As we release our attachments to external validation, to rigid ideas of who we are and what we must be, we open ourselves to the deeper truths of our own humanity. We realize that our flaws, our mistakes, and our fears are not to be ashamed of but to be understood. They are the very aspects that make us whole. When we stop clinging to the idealized version of ourselves, the persona we present to the world, we begin to uncover the richness of our true self, which includes both light and shadow. This is not to say that letting go means we become passive or indifferent. On the contrary, it requires an active participation in the process of self-discovery. To let go means to release the need to control, to resist, and to hold on to what is no longer serving us. It is the willingness to sit with discomfort, to sit with the parts of ourselves that we would rather not acknowledge. But in this willingness, we find the most profound freedom. We no longer have to live in fear of what we might discover about ourselves. We learn to embrace all aspects of our being, both the light and the dark, as part of the same whole. As we let go, we become less defined by our past. We stop carrying the weight of old stories, old wounds, old identities that no longer serve us. The shadow releases its grip on us not because it is conquered, but because it is integrated. It is no longer something we fear or resist, but something we have learned to live with and accept. And in this acceptance, we reclaim our power. This process of release is not a one-time event. It is ongoing, a continuous practice of letting go of what no longer serves us and allowing new possibilities to emerge. The more we release our attachment to the external world, the more we allow the internal world to flourish. And as we do so, the grip of the shadow loosens further, and we become more aligned with our true self. There is a profound alchemy that occurs when we truly let go. An alchemy not of metals but of the soul. When we release the things we cling to, when we surrender to the flow of life rather than resisting it, we set in motion a process of transformation that defies the limits of ordinary change. This is not mere change, where one form is replaced by another. It is a deep, spiritual metamorphosis, an inner transmutation that alters the very fabric of who we are. We often think of transformation as something that happens externally. Our circumstances change, our external conditions shift, and we become a different version of ourselves based on those changes. But the alchemical transformation that occurs when we let go begins not on the surface, but deep within. It is a transformation of the inner landscape, a shift in how we perceive ourselves, our relationship with the world, and our place within the vast interconnectedness of all things. The first step of this transformation occurs when we release our attachment to the need for control. Control is an illusion, a construct of the ego that seeks to impose order on a world that is inherently fluid and unpredictable. When we try to control our lives, we become rigid. We force ourselves into molds that are not meant for us. We lock ourselves into patterns of behavior that stifle our growth. But when we let go of control, we open ourselves up to the unknown. We allow life to unfold naturally, without our interference. This is the beginning of true transformation. When we stop trying to shape everything, and instead allow ourselves to be shaped by life, we move from a mindset of scarcity, where everything is something to be grasped, hoarded, or controlled, to a mindset of abundance, where everything is an opportunity for growth, learning, and discovery. We stop fearing the unknown, and instead, we begin to trust the unfolding of our journey. As we let go of control, we activate a process that is both personal and universal. When we surrender our need to control, we align ourselves with the deeper currents of the universe. We step into the flow of life, no longer swimming against the tide, but moving in harmony with it. This is when the magic begins to happen. The universe, which has always been in motion, now moves with us. The forces of nature, of time, of destiny. These forces begin to work in our favor, not because we have manipulated them, but because we have opened ourselves to them. The alchemy of transformation is about refining the raw material of our lives, our fears, our pain, our attachments, into something more valuable. It is about taking what we have experienced and transmuting it into wisdom. This is not something we can do through sheer effort or willpower. It happens when we stop trying to fix ourselves and instead allow the process of transformation to occur on its own. When we let go of our attachments to outcomes, to certainty, to a fixed identity, we create the space for change to take place. In the alchemical process, there is a stage known as the calcination, where the old self is burned away. It is a purifying fire that consumes everything that is not aligned with our highest truth. This burning away is not easy. It can be painful, even devastating, as it forces us to let go of parts of ourselves that we thought were essential to our identity. But in that destruction, in that release, the alchemist discovers the gold, the pure essence of who we are, unencumbered by the weight of the past. Letting go is the catalyst for this process. When we let go of our need to hold on to the past, to old stories, to old ways of being, we allow the alchemy to unfold. It is as though the fire of transformation is lit within us, and through the act of surrender, we undergo a deep, inner refinement. We are no longer the same person who clung desperately to the past. We emerge from the flames of transformation as something new, something purified. This alchemical process is not about changing who we are, but about returning to the essence of who we were always meant to be. The more we release, the more we return to the core of our being, where all the wisdom, strength, and clarity we need already reside. It is a process of self-discovery, not self-creation. We are not becoming someone different. We are shedding the layers that have obscured the truth of who we are. As this transformation takes place, we begin to see life differently. We begin to see the world not as something to be conquered or controlled, but as a reflection of our inner state. When we let go, we are not just releasing the external things that no longer serve us. We are also releasing the internal blocks that prevent us from experiencing life fully. We stop living in fear, in resistance, in judgment. Instead, we begin to live in acceptance, in openness, in flow. The alchemy of transformation is not a linear process. It is not something that happens overnight, nor is it something we can control. It is a process that unfolds in its own time, in its own way, but it is always available to us, and it begins the moment we are willing to let go. The more we release, the more the universe responds. We are no longer trapped in the illusion of control. We are free to be who we truly are, and in that freedom, the alchemical magic of transformation takes place. When we decide to let go, there is a shift in our understanding of how life works. We begin to see that control, in its essence, is a human construct, a way for the ego to maintain its illusion of power over the unpredictability of existence. But the universe, in its infinite wisdom, operates on a far more intricate level than we can ever truly comprehend. It moves not by the rules of logic and reason that the ego holds so dearly, but by the laws of flow, harmony, and synchronicity. When we let go, we step out of our rigid plans and open ourselves to the guidance of this greater process, a process that often knows better than we do. The fear of letting go stems from the ego's deep-seated belief that if it doesn't control every aspect of life, everything will fall apart. It is as though we are constantly in a state of managing the chaos of the world around us, believing that without our intervention, everything would collapse. But this is a delusion, a trap. The universe is not a chaotic mess, waiting for our intervention to impose order. Instead, it is a living, breathing entity with its own intelligence and rhythm. A rhythm that, when we align ourselves with it, brings us into the flow of life. Trusting the process means surrendering the need to control the details, to micromanage our destiny. It means understanding that the universe, far beyond our conscious grasp, has a plan for us that is often more profound and expansive than anything we could devise through sheer effort or willpower. The paradox is that the moment we release our attachment to specific outcomes, we make space for the right ones to materialize. This is where true trust lies, in letting go of our expectations and allowing the universe to work in its own mysterious ways. To trust in the process is not to be passive, and it is not about waiting for life to simply unfold without action on our part. It is about aligning ourselves with a higher sense of purpose and moving with intention, but without the burden of expecting things to unfold in a certain way. We make decisions, we take steps, but we do so without clinging to the outcome, understanding that we may think we want may not always be what we need. We trust that every experience, every person we meet, and every event that takes place is part of the larger unfolding. This trust requires faith, not in some external force, but in the deep wisdom of the universe and in our own ability to adapt, learn, and grow. The universe does not necessarily work on our timeline. It may feel as though things are not progressing, that opportunities are slipping away, or that we are stuck in a holding pattern. But in these moments of waiting, we are being prepared. We are being shaped by experiences that are difficult to see at the time, but will later reveal their purpose. The waiting period is not a void, it is a space of refinement. It is a time where the universe is orchestrating things behind the scenes, arranging circumstances and people in ways that we cannot yet perceive. Sometimes when we let go, the world does seem to fall apart. Our plans crumble, relationships shift, and we are left in a state of uncertainty. It can be tempting in these moments to revert to old patterns of control, to grasp for the familiar, to try to piece together the broken fragments of our lives. But what we do not always realize is that these breaks, these moments of breakdown, are part of the process. They are not signs of failure but of growth. They signal that the old structures we built are no longer aligned with who we are becoming. In these moments, trust becomes the bridge that connects the change to the clarity of what will emerge. True trust means surrendering the need to know what is next. It is about understanding that life's path is not always a straight line. We may take detours, experience setbacks, or face unexpected challenges, but each of these twists and turns has a purpose. It is in these moments of uncertainty that we are being guided, even when we cannot see the way forward. The universe works in ways that are not always immediately visible to us. But if we trust the process, if we stop trying to control every aspect of our lives, we will begin to see the connections, the signs, and the hidden messages that point us in the right direction. Trusting in the process also means releasing the need for validation. In a world that often rewards external achievements, we are conditioned to seek approval, to seek recognition, and to measure our worth by how well we are performing according to society's standards. But when we trust the process, we stop seeking validation from the outside world. We become attuned to a deeper sense of fulfillment that does not depend on external accolades. We know that we are on the right path not because others tell us, but because we feel it deeply within ourselves. As we continue to let go, we begin to witness the magic of life's timing. We start to see how everything falls into place, how what we thought we wanted was merely preparation for something far better. We realize that the universe was not ignoring us. It was aligning circumstances in ways that would serve our highest good. This is the essence of trusting the process, to allow life to unfold without interference, knowing that what is meant for us will come in its own time and its own way. In the end, letting go and trusting the process is an act of alignment with life's deeper rhythm. It is an acknowledgement that the universe is not separate from us, but is a reflection of our own inner state. When we trust the process, we align ourselves with the flow of life, and in doing so, we become part of something far greater than ourselves. The universe always knows better, and when we release our need to control, we open ourselves to the profound wisdom that life has to offer. In the journey of letting go, we come to realize that control is an illusion, and surrender is the gateway to a deeper, more profound connection with the universe. Each step of releasing, Whether it's letting go of attachments, confronting our shadows, or trusting in the unseen process of life, paves the way for a transformation that transcends our limited understanding. As we relinquish the need to hold on to what we think we need, we make space for the flow of life to move through us, guiding us to what we truly require for our growth and evolution. The universe, with its intricate intelligence, responds to our surrender not by abandoning us, but by guiding us with an unseen hand, leading us to a higher level of self-awareness, peace, and fulfillment. In this process of release, we begin to understand that everything, even the seemingly difficult moments, is part of the alchemy of transformation. As we trust in the process, we come to experience the flow of life, not as something to control or fear, but as something to dance with. Letting go is not a single act but an ongoing practice, a journey that unfolds in its own time, revealing its wisdom layer by layer. And in this surrender, we are not diminished. Instead, we are restored, strengthened, and more connected to the essence of who we are. It is through this release, this trust, and this surrender that we align ourselves with the greater currents of life, and in doing so, we open ourselves to the profound magic of the universe that has always been working in our favor.